Hello, and welcome back to my GTNH playthrough. It is Thursday the 19th, and we are over here in a new processing building that I'm setting up, which is going to be ultimately for Kevlar. Spoiler, I did not finish getting Kevlar, but got a good jump into it. I kind of got distracted with some rabbit holes, but that was all today. So I know I didn't make a video yesterday, but I thought it'd be kind of silly because I only got one thing done before my server crashed and the whole thing. Basically, I did not do a lot yesterday, but I did do some stuff. So and that was one. I did make a definitive decision on what I'm gonna be working towards, which is currently going to be, just because if we go to this or wrong tab, the UEV tab, we've got the Final Frontier quest, working towards this guy, raw 10 gram, which technically by this guy, we mean the Mothership. Want the 10 gram. I also want right here, dilithium. Dilithium is the lens we're missing still from our grade 6 water. And as far as I can tell, there is no way to get dilithium anywhere else. Like, you have to go to a tier 9 planet. So to do that, we need the Mothership. And to do that, we need a bunch of stuff. But the first thing we needed, turn this on. This is the Mothership part of the tab. We needed the schematic. As you can see, I've got it. But to get the schematic for this one's a little different than the others. Instead of going through a dungeon, you actually have to craft this one. Which I thought you just needed to research it. I don't know why. In my head, I misinterpreted the screen. But yeah, so you have to get a NASA tier 8, which when I went back to Pluto to set up the, what did I go back to Pluto for? Something. I went back there for something a while ago. I did go and defeat another dungeon to get another tier 8. Luckily, I only had to do it once because there's two different schematics. This and the Draconium one. Got this on the first try, on the retry. So did this, which this actually, after some of the researches to get the space pumps, felt like really fast. So that's nice. Also, now I'm thinking about it, I don't know if I turned off the research station. Okay, good. I did shut it down. As you can see, yeah, I did that 22 hours ago is when I researched this. But to also get it, you have to craft it. And to craft it is kind of a pain in the butt. You need all these different raw ores, as well as these items down here were all stuff I had naturally, with the exception of this guy, which is the Infinity Catalyst ingot. Now, I was just throwing all my Infinity Catalyst into the compressor, so I did have to turn that off. I don't know if we'll need Infinity Catalyst ingots for anything else, but if we do, that'll require some infrastructure change, which you see I'm backed up to 400,000 since I've turned it off, but currently we're at quite a bit of this, so it's fine if this stays shut off for a while. Now I at least like passively making these. Now you see I'm up to 11k infinity, and actually I'm curious, how's my cosmic doing? Not great, not keeping up. Fun. That's wonderful. This stuff's a pain in the butt. But anyways, so to actually get this, these three, one of them is pretty straightforward, and then two of them were blast alloy recipes that were UHV. So I did have to go through and up at least this UHV, or this mega structure to be UHV compliant, which included swapping out all the glass, swapping out the energy hatch, because you can't tier skip on this guy. I didn't bother with the coils for now. So I got that set up to get both the abyssal alloy and the astral titanium, which actually, sorry, no, that was for the abyssal alloy and the molten, what do you want to call this? Octaron. The molten astral titanium actually had to go about a different route. So now the only way I could see to get it was through plasma, which technically there's this recipe, which is a 1-to-1, but that feels like a waste because we can also do this recipe, which gets us supercritical steam as a byproduct and is also 1-to-1, just requires some distilled water at the same time. So I did set one of those up. I get out of the trees over here. Set up a second extreme heat exchanger, and it's set up the same way the other one is. So we've got distilled water, like a buffer of distilled water over here, so it doesn't explode. Then we have an interface into a super tank. I do it this way. That way the input buffer also, like, I can just feed with a regulator, so it doesn't overwhelm the amount of distilled water, because I still haven't gone and like made just a giga huge distilled water production, which I do need to do, because I believe specifically the abyssal alloy, if I'm remembering correctly, I am not, because it doesn't look like it. One of those was the reason I couldn't get to celestial plasma. Let's see. Actually, I'm curious, because eventually we'll come back to this. Yeah, let's see. Celestial tungsten plasma is made from advanced nitinol, which we can make. Molten tartarite, which this guy we get from... I know I can make this, because this is one of the things. I just need to... All I would need to do is set up... either set up a space mining thing or a void miner on one of the Bernard planets. I believe Bernarda C would get me that, which would... I'm curious if I'm like 100,000. Yeah, no, okay. So I would need to do some work to get this, but that's the last ingredient missing from being able to make the celestial tungsten, which can be made in a Mark III. And this is as far as I'm aware, the best way to go about making dense supercritical steam. Yeah, again, I need to fix the distilled water and make this practical. The other part for getting the schematic, like I said, this was a pain in the butt, but I basically I set up a trap in where the ore factories are to pull out these ores as they came in, but the only ones that seem to be coming in, even though I was messing around with the mining drones, is Lanthanum and Samarium. So I flew to the planets and just used the Vajra in silk mode to grab tartarite, cadmium, caesium, and cerium. I might be saying, I apologize if my stuff's butchered. But long story short, I was able to craft this guy. It's pretty expensive schematic, but so you would think naturally the next step would be to start crafting the shuttle. However, as soon as I started looking into the shuttle, we can see, for one, it's not unlocked. And that's because of the legs, which is because of the Kevlar. And then over here, we got the Nano Forge Tier 2, which I haven't figured out how I'm going to go about this guy yet. As far as I'm aware, for the Nano Forge Tier 2, we need neutronium nanites. Nanite. To make Tier 2, yeah, like if we hover over here, it says requires a neutronium nanite to use Tier 2. Now, to make this, we need UMV power. So I'll have to buff my power more to be able to handle this for 100 seconds. I think I might be able to now, but I don't know. This will be a simpler thing to solve than, and including this chromatic lens thing, as far as I can tell, than what I'm currently working on, which is the Kevlar part. So that is why I started setting up the Kevlar line. Now, according to the quest book, if we go over here, I believe I can't remember if it's LUV or ZPM. Yeah, I think it's all the way back in LUV. No, that was super glue. UV? Ah, yeah, here it is. Kevlar. So it looks like it's a 52-step process, which it definitely feels that way. Or you can do the Kevlar B. Now, before looking into this today, I assumed I would need to at least craft 9 Kevlar dust to be able to do the Kevlar B, like do a Kevlar block as the base. But if we actually look at it, you don't. You only need this an oil B infinity catalyst, which I have both of these. It just requires epic elemental composer. And if we go here, I mean, it's expensive, but I could do it. There's literally nothing in here that's like quote unquote hard. So I will do this B and as soon as I finish with this other process, but I wanted to do the actual Kevlar line because my gut feeling is if it's 52 steps and when I start clicking on it, we got a bunch of different stuff I don't have, that it's probably in the short term, the Kevlar B would get us forward. In the long term, I'd probably be hurting myself because there's probably random chemical stuff in that line that if I just do it all now, I won't have to worry about it later and or just have to up the energy hatches later. That's exactly what I started doing over here. Now, like I said, it's 52 steps. So for this one, I just figured it would be simpler. Normally I go like all the other lines I did, I started from the front and then went to the back, and then just that way all the stuff was crafting as I went, and I was like building a backlog each multi-block I made. However, this one, because there's so many steps that it seems to be pulling from all over the place, I decided to go back to front. So the last step of the Kevlar line is the chemical washing plant to make the actual Kevlar plate. And then I decided to go for the polyurethane resin first, which is this guy over here. And you see I'm all labeling them all. Now for the polyurethane resin, we need these ethylene glycol and silicone oil. We need both of these. All the rest of these LCRs are all just for creating dough or crafting these two things. What I started working on, if we go over here, polyurethane catalyst A dust, when we're looking at this, that's the first dust on here. This is basically where, this is the point where I hit the rabbit hole. So I set up the LCR that would craft us that. And then when I started going backwards, I was like, okay, we go tin, this gets us here. So I'll need these three, which I do make iron 3 chloride elsewhere. I'm debating about if I want to set up a more or a better one here. I need to investigate. I can't remember what I have set up to make this right now. And then these two, and I believe it was the butanol. Yeah. So basically, the reason I'm just clicking through a couple is if you backtrack back to it's as far as you can go, where I have like essentially the raw inputs, which even this guy, this block in itself is a bunch of different things as well, just to get to this thing. I noticed propene. Now, when I looked at it earlier, my propene, I remember this chemical specifically because it has been a huge bottleneck for me in the past, especially for polybenzene or so this is the point where I was like, okay, now we need to go on a rabbit hole. So basically propene is, and again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, is one of the essentially the byproducts of fully processing oil. So I ended up doing a bunch of stuff in this building as well as over in the oil area. I think I'm going to start over in the oil area and we'll work our way back over here. So this, I've said it a few times, but this is what used to provide all my power. This is where I make C-Team boosted diesel. And this was my power source up till I swapped to nuclear, was everything set up over here. Oil comes in here and then it gets processed. As you can see, I'm out of oil, which I was waiting for it to craft, but didn't finish before I left work and came home, was this infinity drill. I am going to set up an infinity drill on the overworld in a nice oil vein, so I just never run out of oil again. That's the goal. And then just as a random aside, I forgot to mention it, but I did actually set up a different infinity drill today, which I'm pretty happy about. If we're looking at the polyurethane resin, the ethylene glycol and silicone oil, and the silicone oil takes ethylene oxide. Yes, I need a lot of ethylene. What I did not realize is ethylene is actually pumpable off of a planet. So I went and set up an infinity drill on a very nice oil or fluid deposit on Triton, and now ethylene should not be an issue anymore because I actually had ethylene being made on a mega chemical reactor somewhere, and was still running out. And you can even see with that infinity drill, like I barely keep it. Like it's crazy. Like I use so much ethylene. It's but now I'm getting it constantly. So this is good. We're using a lot of it, and once everything backlogs, that should catch up. But anyways, so I'm gonna set up the infinity drill on the overworld, get oil coming in. I'm definitely gonna. This will be for regular oil. I did swap this guy, which is making my lubricant currently, to only use heavy oil because we're getting heavy oil specifically from the oil sands. And then as well as I came down here and I started cleaning things up. So as you can imagine, if this was powering my base pre-IV, I could tell I've been talking for a while because it's raining already again. That I wish that thing that shut off the rain lasted longer than 10 minutes, but whatever. This was all a giant mess. There's pipes everywhere. At one point down here, I had nuclear mixed with these potent pipes all over the place. Currently, my C-Team boosted diesel is shut down because I started ripping all the pipes out, and we're updating to AE. So I really like this kind of setup, for example, off the distillation towers, and I've swapped all my distillation towers to be this instead, where instead of coming out to super tanks to keep it moving, I got it coming out to AE and then all going to a single storage bus that then exports it out into the main network. So again, this distillation tower is for regular oil. I built it all the way to the top because this was the first distillation tower I built, and I always remember seeing it in videos. It was really big, so I assumed there was some like benefit at the time. Like I just built it as big as I could. In reality, this could be cut off up here. There's no reason for all that. But then I also threw this one down here to also process heavy oil into all the byproducts. Like I said, there was a different distillation tower down here doing heavy oil, but this is the Dangote one, Dangote Distillers. So it's running in parallel. Also brought over ZPM power to process both these. These guys were running on IV. And like I can't stress enough, I wish I should have done like a thing of taking like a better beforehand view of this, which at some point I will whenever I make the full real videos. But cleaned all this up, and I will turn all this stuff back on. I haven't decided if I'm going to just reuse these guys as they are or set up a mega to process, but we'll see. I will see what I feel like. I just want it all to be clean, and I want it all to be AE and not have just pipes everywhere where it's just frustrating to walk around. So like I said, the whole reason I did this though is so essentially what happens is we distill the oil, we get sulfuric fuels, including sulfuric naphtha, which is actually the thing we're worried about at the moment. Because then we hop out here and we go over to one of our more modern buildings, which I also did a bunch of cleaning up in today, cleaning up channels. And like I shut this down. This was my ITNT production, for example, where we don't need that. The B makes way more than we'll ever need. And soon we won't even need any because we'll get the multi-block version of this, but future plans. This guy, so basically we get naphtha. Don't worry about that. Sulfuric naphtha comes in here, mixes with some hydrogen, which that's crazy that I've gone through all the hydrogen. Dang. We have to, that's crazy. But anyways, yeah, this mixes with the hydrogen, makes sulfuric naphtha, regular naphtha, not sulfuric naphtha, which then comes into a oil cracker, as well as some steam, and then outputs I went for the severely steam cracked naphtha, comes into this distillation tower, which actually is tall on purpose. You can see how big it goes. I even had to do this because there was just too many outputs for a single thing, but again, it's all coming out to a single storage bus. And then this guy right here, when it's running, is what makes us propane, as well as all the other stuff. But to be able to get more fluid to this fast, because you'll see right now it's shut off, which means it's keeping up with the current process. But I end up crafting one of these guys. And this, I didn't even realize this was a mega block in here, or else I probably would have crafted one sooner. I guess I just didn't notice it whenever I've clicked mega before. But this guy is the mega oil cracker. So again, it's doing the same thing. We got naphtha coming in, which we've gone through all the naphtha. I was at 150 million, so this thing went through it. Got steam, and then it outputs the severely steam cracked. Not really too much to say about this. It's pretty straightforward multi-block. It's literally just a big version of the little one up there with nothing really unique about it, I guess. I think the only thing that probably would have been noticeable if I didn't build this one by hand. I just used the schematic for it, and I feel like I would have messed up putting the holes in here. This is the only thing. So that'll come up to here, and yeah, so that was a pretty big side quest, but like I said, it was worth it. We were not keeping up with this before, let alone the other byproducts, and being able to keep up with that. I haven't gone through to make sure all the LCRs are running, but that was bottlenecking. Would be the next floor, right? Yeah, this whole process of making polybend, yeah, that. So yeah, that was pretty nifty. The only other thing I did though, so if you notice, I had 721 million things of steam, and that is because all the way here in UHV is when I finally crafted my first steam boilers or large steel steam boilers. I went with these ones because they can use charcoal, and I have a lot of charcoal. Yeah, 220 million. I have 3 of these running constantly, and they don't it isn't even making a slight of a dent in the charcoal. The whole reason I went this, I actually was not keeping enough steam or making enough steam to keep the crackers running. Was kind of funny. So I set up this one first, and it still wasn't making enough steam. And I set this one up just fine. Like, I didn't forget to put water in it or anything like a rookie. Not so much these guys. I forgot to put the water on. And what's funny is you set these up, turn them on, you get a little achievement. But the game trolls you. If you turn these on without the water, you get fireworks. It like gives you a trophy for forgetting to make sure there's enough water in one of these. So that was amusing when I blew up the one on the left. The only sad part was it took a taping maintenance hatch with it, which is pretty expensive to walk, but you know, there's always more. But yeah, that's actually spent longer on all that than I thought I was going to for all this. But yeah, it was a fun little side quest. I do want to clean up that oil building more, and really the goal for the rest of the night and tomorrow is to continue working on and hopefully get Kevlar to then look at what I need to do next towards making the mothership. But yeah, appreciate you for watching, and I hope everyone had a good day and has a good night. I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.